We are so excited to have all of you here with us today. Now, this webinar has been brought to you free today thanks to our sponsor, Microsoft, Education Empowered. When it comes to technology and education, your school needs more than a device or a service. Your school deserves a complete solution, and your end-to-end solution begins with Microsoft. Now, for those of you who are joining in live, I just went ahead and sent out a tweet from our Twitter account. You can feel free to retweet to your followers and invite them to attend today's session that is free and open to the public. Thanks to our friends at Microsoft. Just be sure to include this link as well as the hashtag SK12 when you send out your tweet. Once again, live back channel chat, great place for you all as attendees. You can take notes and chat with one another. And we will have some time for some live Q&A at the end of our session today with Robin. Feel free to submit your questions through that questions box of GoToWebinar. Now, it does tend to auto-collapse, but if you click on that orange arrow, the question box will open and you can type in your question. Now, a little bit about our presenter. Robin Rivnats is a Senior Partners and Learning Manager for U.S. Education. She has experience as a middle school teacher as well as K-12 Instructional Technology Specialist. Now, Robin is a Microsoft Innovative Educator Master Trainer, MIC Trainer, Discovery Educator Network Star Educator, EdCamp Organizer, Certified Smart Trainer, and an active member of ISTE, TCEA, and several educational technology special interest groups. Robin, it's a pleasure to be here with you today. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, my pleasure. I'm looking forward to learning with all of you today.
I just went ahead and passed the screen to you, and your screen looks great.
Excellent. All right, let me go ahead and launch this presentation. All right, so welcome guys. Today we're going to talk about 10 class hacks that you can use in your classrooms using Microsoft Office. So what we'll be doing is kind of bouncing back and forth between, I'll show you a hack, a tip, and then we'll actually go out and see how this hack works using some of these tools in Office. So be looking forward to kind of bouncing back and forth. All right, so we might start off talking about what is a hack. You may have heard the term hack, and maybe you've heard a term maybe used with a negative connotation, as in maybe someone was hacking into your bank account, or someone was illegally hacking into a network. But there is also a positive spin to hacking as well. The way we look at defining the word hack, and if you actually do a search for the word hack, you'll see that many definitions come up. But one definition of the word hack is a clever solution to a tricky problem. A hack is to mod or to change something in an extraordinary way. There are lots of sites out there for different life hacks, things that you can do in your personal life to make things better, easier, simpler, or more innovative. And so we're kind of taking that same spin on different life hacks and applying them to the classroom. So we're going to talk about 10 class hacks that you can do using some tools that you probably already know and love, which is maybe familiar to you, or some new tools that we have as part of the Office suite that you may not be familiar with yet. So look forward to sharing with you some ways to hack your classroom and do something different in an ordinary or extraordinary way. So let's start off with the first one. First hack is to use Office Lens to convert old handouts into digital editable resources. So for those of you that are not familiar, Office Lens is an app. You can download it on any of your web-based phones, so it's available via iOS, Android, Windows phones across platform. And when you download the Office Lens app, it basically accesses your camera on your phone, and it allows you to take pictures of things such as maybe a whiteboard, or maybe it's a worksheet that you have. So the example here is, let's say you have this worksheet that has some valuable information on it, and maybe you only have the hard copy of it. It came maybe from some workbook or a resource, or maybe it's just straight from your textbook, but you don't have it in a digital format, and you would actually like to be able to use that information, maybe add some different things to it, mock it up, but you don't want to have to retype the entire worksheet over again. So what you can do is you can simply open Office Lens on your mobile device. You can take a picture of the worksheet, or it could even be a whiteboard. Like I said, it could be anything. And then what it does is Office Lens will scan using OCR technology that document, and you can actually export that document to Word or to OneNote or as a PDF. You can save it as an image. There are many choices, but if you actually export that document to Word, then what you can see happens is it will actually open up that document in Microsoft Word so that then I can actually come into that Word document and edit the text and change things, remove things, add things. Maybe I want to add some questions to this and use it as an assignment. So simple way, instead of spending a bunch of your time having to retype something that you have a hard copy of, use Office Lens and let that work be done for you. So that's hack number 1. Hack number 2 is instead of using or opening a dictionary or searching online for a definition, you can use the Smart Lookup feature in Word. And I'm actually going to take us to Word in a second. We'll launch and I'll show you exactly what this looks like. So let's back out of this presentation for just a moment. I'm going to open up, I'll open up this Word document here. And you'll see that the document opens up in Word, and let's say that I'm a student and I'm, looking over this assignment and I'm not really understanding what the word contiguous means. So what I can do is I can just simply highlight that word contiguous in my Word document, and then I can right-click on it and select Smart Lookup. And when I do, you'll notice on the side here that it'll actually define the word over here. And it's not just a definition. Obviously, we could actually explore Wikipedia as well, or do a web search, all within inside this tool inside of Word. So it's a great way for students to be able to quickly access and use there's the dictionary feature right there in Word, but it also is basing on contextual clues. And that's what's really amazing about the Smart Lookup. It's not just a lookup tool, it's actually smart. So we know, especially in the English language, that there are many words that have multiple meanings and multiple definitions. What the Smart Lookup tool does is it actually looks at surrounding text in the Word document and uses context clues to determine that definition of that word. So if you are looking up a word that may have multiple meanings, it will actually understand which meaning that word is looking at based on the contextual clues around it. So that's why it's so smart. So that is hack number 2. All right, we're going to pop back into the presentation really quick, and we're going to look at the next hack. Hack number 3, instead of buying expensive design software to create infographics, you can create graphics with PowerPoint. So I know that a lot of design software is really expensive, and or there's a pretty steep learning curve to actually use some of it, but many of you obviously are familiar with using PowerPoint. So instead of purchasing new software or, taking a class to learn how to create infographics and some other software that may be harder to use, why not just use the thing that you already know and create those infographics inside of PowerPoint, and then just convert those to images by just saving as a JPEG. So for instance, here is an infographic created in PowerPoint. So basically I just opened up PowerPoint. This is just a PowerPoint slide, and I designed my PowerPoint slide the way I wanted it to look. But then I maybe want to use this as an image in other files, other resources. Maybe I want to share it out to my students on a social network, etc. I can actually create something like this in PowerPoint and then save it as a JPEG. So to do that, I'm just going to pop out right here into my PowerPoint so you can see what I did. So here's my PowerPoint slide. And if I wanted this slide to turn into a picture, very simple tool. An easy way to do this is I just go to File, and then I choose Save As, and I just choose where I want it to save, and I can actually choose in the drop-down, instead of saving it as a PowerPoint presentation, I would simply choose to save it as a JPEG file interchange format. So the JPEG format, and when I did and save this, then it basically will take that slide and save it as an image for me. So easy class hack to actually create something really beautiful without having to learn all new software. All right. So moving on to class hack number 4. Another hack of using PowerPoint that I use a lot is, again, ways to alter images. And so there are a lot of smart tools that pick up based on things you're doing inside of PowerPoint. So for example, let's say I'm in PowerPoint and I might have this picture here. I just snagged a picture from Frozen, and maybe I want to actually use this picture or have these characters in my classroom. Maybe I want them to travel throughout history and have my students blog about their adventures through different historical travels. Well, when I put these folks into a different historical setting, I probably I want them to look more natural or maybe not stand out as much. So I can use tools in PowerPoint to actually remove the background image, and I'll actually show you how to do that in a second, and so that it now looks like these folks here. So with simply a couple of clicks, I can remove the background, and then I can then take this image and I can transfer it to another location. So let me show you how to do that really quickly. I'm just going to add I'll add a new slide here. I'm just going to delete this out. And let's say I'm going to show you how I did this. So I took this image. I'm just going to copy it really quickly. And then I'm going to paste it over here onto this PowerPoint slide. And I can resize it if I want. Now notice that when I actually have the image selected, my smart ribbon will appear, and it gives me my picture tools up here along the top. So inside of picture tools, this is where I have the ability to do a lot of altering of my image. So I'm going to simply select this button right here that says remove background. And when I did, you can see that it kind of puts this purplish pink color around the image, and part of it's still showing colored. Well, when I actually expand out a little bit more, you can see I can tell what it's actually going to do and what pieces of the image it will remove here. So if I think that looks great and I don't need to remove anything else, then I simply just click in the empty space, and now this is an image. So the background has been removed. There's a transparent back in the background, and now I can take this image and I can, let's say I'm going to copy this image. And let's say we were discussing Dr. Martin Luther King Day, and I wanted my characters to now travel to the day that Dr. Martin Luther King delivered his I Have a Dream speech. Maybe I want the Frozen characters to be hanging out on the lawn out here. And so now my students, maybe I would give them a writing prompt to say, let's create some blogs, or let's do a creative writing assignment and have our characters share what they experienced that day with Dr. Martin Luther King and how he began to change and make an impact in our historical moments of life. So, and I could actually take this even if I didn't want them to stick out and I didn't want them to be in color. I could even come to that picture tools, and I could actually go to the color, and I could even make them black and white. So now they're still here, they're hanging out, but now they're in the true black and white picture, just like this is. So a simple classroom hack. I don't have to have any major design skills in order to do these things. All right. And let's go to our next class hack. So number 5, class hack number 5, is to gain back lost time at the beginning of class by having students complete warm-up activities in OneNote class notebooks. So I know from my years in the classroom that, especially teaching secondary, we switched classes every 45 to 50 minutes, and there were many times that, just getting my kids into class and having them sit down and open up their bags and pull out their notebook or their binder or find a piece of paper, or maybe it was they collected a sheet as they came in, and you wanted them to work on a warm-up activity. That process of getting my kids to get seated and find their materials and actually get started on the warm-up, I know I lost probably 5 minutes of class every day just having my students try to figure out where their things were, find a pencil, get their notebook, etc. out. So OneNote class notebooks can actually let you gain back some of your instructional time by having the students know exactly what to do, by having a routine and doing everything digitally where you can have it pre-prepared for them as they come in class. So for example, I'm going to come out of here. I'm going to go into OneNote. And this is an example of a OneNote class notebook. Now in my class notebook space, this is the name of my notebook here. You can see I have a collaboration space, and this is a space that me and all of my students can share and work together in. I have a content library space, and this is a location where I can have things available for my students, and I can add materials, and they can see them, but they can't edit or change my work. But they could copy things from here into their own notebooks. And then if you also can see here, these names here are my individual students. So these would be my students in my classroom. They all have access to their notebook. So I can see their notebook and they can see their own notebook, but they can't see each other's notebooks. So Krista and Lainey cannot see each other's notebooks. Krista just sees the spaces that I have shared with her and her notebook. But as the teacher, I would see everything. So in a classroom situation, I might have my students just get in the habit of coming into class, they go to the warm-up section of the notebook, and they see that they have an assignment for today. So the assignment is to read the article and respond to the questions at the end of the article that are down here. So what my students would simply do is they simply just copy this page, and then they would go back to their notebook. So Krista would come to her notebook, and she would actually just paste that page right into her notebook. So now this is her copy of that notebook, and she can get started immediately on that assignment. And because you're using OneNote, students are not restricted to not being able to highlight or mark up on the document, so they could still come in here and they could choose to, you know, do some note-taking, et cetera, alongside the notebook, and then answer the questions that go along with it. So I'm not losing time at the beginning of the class. My kids just know that there's warm-ups for them. They automatically come here and complete that task right away. So that is that class hack. All right. Now moving on to the next class hack. It looks like we're behind one. All right, number 6 is no need to drive home with a pile of notebooks when you could open OneNote and give personal feedback with audio, video, inking, or typing right into the student's notebook. And so just as a moment ago, I shared with you where the student can do the work. Being that you're the teacher and you have access to their class notebook, you can actually give them feedback right away. Now I will back up one step again and show you this is my class notebook and these are my students. So in the days where maybe you're used to using interactive student notebooks in your classroom and maybe your students work on assignments and then they turn their, maybe at some point in time you have them turn their notebooks into you and you maybe, you know, have to carry along this big pile of notebooks back home because you want to look at the students' work throughout the day, give them some feedback, and then you have to lug all those back to this classroom again. When you go digital and you use OneNote Class Notebook, there's no need to lug any notebooks back and forth or binders back and forth from your house to school any longer. And you don't even have to worry about collecting these from the students because everything is digital. So now in my class notebook, I can just see all of my students' interactive notebooks. So I just take my computer home at the end of the day and I have my students' notebooks with me. So no longer do I have to carry around this big lug of information. So I could come to Krista's notebook as the teacher, and if I wanted to give her feedback, I could see all the work that she did inside of OneNote herself, and I could also give feedback. So I could either draw in feedback using my inking tools if I wanted to, or I could type in some feedback into the OneNote as well. And I could even go a step further. There are a lot of times where, you know, especially when I'm grading writing assignments, I might want to give a lot more information and specific feedback to a student when I can't just type it out or just write it out. You know, we're very familiar of the days where, you know, on a lot of papers that you'd get back, you might just see me across the top of the paper. And that meant that you need to go check with the teacher because they had some more feedback that was just too complex or they didn't have the time to write it all out in the notebook. Well, with OneNote, there is no need for the student to have to come back a day later to see the teacher or you to try to figure out how you're going to get, you know, 3 to 5 minutes with that student to give them a more thorough explanation of what they need help with. You can now do that inside OneNote as well. And so in OneNote, being able to give that feedback to my students, yes, I could do it by typing, yes, I could do it by writing, but I also could record feedback. So I might just come to my insert ribbon up here in OneNote, and then I would say record audio. And when I do, a recording will start. So I could leave Krista a personalized message, and I might say, hey Krista, I looked at the work you were doing and I noticed X, Y, and Z, and it's recording my voice, and I could actually even ink and highlight as I'm talking and giving direction to Krista, and then when I'm done I just simply press stop. And that recording is now on her page in the notebook. So that if I did this, let's say at 5 p.m., and Krista's also looking in her notebook, let's say at 5:10 p.m., she would not have to wait to hear an explanation the next day in class. She could hear me give her that instant feedback right there, along with, whatever notes I wanted to take. And now she has instant feedback and can start making changes. And another beautiful thing is that I'm now not going to have to lose instructional time in the class tomorrow because I don't need to see if I can pull her off to the side any longer. So these are just simple, innovative ways to hack your classroom to get back more instructional time with your students. So I love OneNote and using class notebooks to be able to provide that instant feedback for our kiddos. All right. All right, the next class hack, number 7, is are you looking to get your student documentation organized? Well, there's a great way that you can do that, and I typically do that via Outlook and OneNote working together. So when you use Outlook alongside of OneNote, then you just get this more robust experience. So I will back out again and kind of show you guys what this looks like as from a Outlook to OneNote perspective. So I'm going to go back initially to my OneNote that I was looking at a while ago. And you'll see that I have an area of my class notebook with my students called documentation. So what I've done is I created a section called documentation, and then I have a section for my students that they're sitting along the top here. And as I get communication or need to add communication, let's say about James, then I can I'll go back and I'll show you how to use Send to OneNote to get that over here. I might want to take a picture of some of James's work and dump it in his OneNote section, or I might just want to jot down a conversation that I had with James, and it's all being able to be tracked in one location. But one of the nice things is that Outlook and OneNote work really well together, which is what I want to show you here. So for instance, if I go to Outlook and let's say I had gotten an email from James's mom and dad, and they were just letting me know that he was out of school for surgery, and is there anything he can do to stay up to date in class. I might want to actually keep that doctor's note along with James's documentation just so I can have everything in one location. Or maybe it was just a conversation that another teacher sent me in regards to some things that they saw that James needed to work on in their class, and how could we work together. It doesn't really matter. If you have this email, this is how simple what you can do, simply. So I can take that email, and with one click, I have a feature in Outlook that shows it says Send to OneNote. So when I click Send to OneNote, it's going to pop up and it's going to say, where do you want to send this email? So I'm going to say, go ahead and send to James Adam, that's current section, and say OK. And you can see what happens now is that email that was in Outlook now gets sent to my OneNote page. And everything in the email came across. So the entire email message along with this document. So this is not just a picture of a Word document. I actually could double click on that document and open it, and it's a real working document. So everything comes across. So this is a great way to stay organized and yourself as a teacher. And we all know that the one thing we need more things with is how do we get more time in our classroom, and how do we become more organized. Hopefully this will be a tip to help you become a little bit organized and keep all of your student information in one location. And you'll have access to it anywhere you go, because OneNote is available across all platforms. So I could even open my OneNote app on my phone and see all this information if needed. All right. So let's take a look at our next classroom hack. Our next classroom hack is number 8, don't waste time building presentations. Focus on the learning by using OneNote Send to Sway. So this is a new feature that was just released not too long ago. It's a feature inside of OneNote, and it's an add-in called Send to Sway. So I know that oftentimes when our students do research in class, they spend, some amount of time getting their research, but then if we ask them to actually present their research back to us and we want them to do a presentation, I know it can be very frustrating when students seem to spend a ton of time actually building a presentation, because what we really want is them to focus on their learning. Can they demonstrate to us an understanding of their learning in the classroom? Sometimes we can see that students lose a lot of time because they're trying to figure out what tool do I want to use, or how do I format my slides, et cetera, and they're not really focusing on being able to demonstrate learning, but are they able to, put their picture in the right position, choose the right font. I know my students used to drive me crazy on the amount of time they would waste selecting animations and transitions between slides. So this tool eliminates the students' need to spend a ton of time on the presentation building. So let me show you how this works. All right, so I'm going to go back into my OneNote, and let me come back to, I'll go back to Krista's notebook. And let's pretend that Krista was doing some research on climate change. And so she'd been pulling together her research, identifying what she knows about climate change and what our current precipitation models and temperatures models did over the past year. So she can go out to the web and do some research and pull down some information. Maybe she finds some good pictures that explain what our climate change issues are currently and how this is portrayed. And as she builds her research, she's just putting everything in her OneNote, just documenting everything that she finds. Now that she has all her research here, now traditionally they might go to PowerPoint or some other tool to create a presentation, but now there's this new add-in for OneNote called Send to Sway. And Sway is a new Office product if you haven't heard about it. It's an online tool, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment, but I just simply click Send to Sway. And when I do, it wants me to sign in, so I'm just going to sign in really quickly with my Microsoft account. And what it does is it will ask me to give a title to my presentation. I'm going to go ahead and keep it as that, and I'm going to say Sway it. And now what it does is it takes all the information that's on my OneNote page, it processes it, and it puts it together in Sway, which is a new online tool that allows our students to be publishers. And I can go ahead and say, View My Sway. And so when I say View My Sway, it's going to launch Sway online. So Sway is available across all platforms because it's web-based, and there's also apps for it on iOS as well. So you can use the Sway app and build on the go. Now, what you have here is you'll see that here's the Sway that it automatically created. So it took the information from my OneNote page and automatically builds it out into some kind of presentation format. And if I don't like that one, I can click this Remix button, and it's going to give it to me in a different way. So now I'm as a student, I'm not having to spend a ton of time on presentation. It takes together my information and it puts together in a nice presentation for me. So that is Sway. All right, we have only a few minutes left, so let me go through our last classroom hacks. Number 9 is don't let students sink their time into the design of the presentation. Again, sort of the same thing. You can have them spend the time on learning by either using Sway, like I just showed you, and that was sending from OneNote to Sway, but you could just have students just simply create a Sway from scratch, which is very simple and easy to do, or you could have your students use PowerPoint Designer. This is a new feature in Office, and so if you have run the latest updates in your Office client, you would have Designer. But here's how Designer works, and I'll actually go into PowerPoint and show you. So again, let me escape out of here, and I will show you by getting a slide. I'll go ahead and get a new blank slide. And let's imagine I'm a student and I need to build a presentation. Now I might simply start with a picture. So I'm just going to go to Insert, I'm going to choose Picture, and then I'm going to go ahead and I will choose one off my desktop. I'll say Planet Earth, Insert, and when I have this Planet Earth, actually, you know what, I think I need to start from I apologize. Let me do this. Let me open up a new presentation instead of trying to build from my current theme. All right, so here we are. It's a student. They're starting from scratch. They're going to select a picture, and they're going to insert it. Now what happens is when I insert the picture as a student, with Designer, it's automatically going to give me design ideas. So you can see on the different side here, I can choose a design, so I'm not having to, how am I going to, design the slide? Maybe I like this look, and I simply click it, and now this becomes my design slide. So Designer is just a quick way to make your slides look really nice in PowerPoint without having to have design skills. All right, so that is Designer. And as I mentioned before, you could also use Sway. And so again, Sway is just either web-based tools. If you go to sway.com, you can create a Sway, or you can download the app on your phone and create a Sway as well. But again, Sway does all the beautiful design work for you, so you don't have to. You can just search for pictures or videos. You can embed other Sways inside Sways. You can put any links to anything you'd like. So it does all the beautification, if you will, of a presentation, so that you don't have to create that yourself. So a lot of time can be gained back by simply letting a tool work for you rather than you having to work on the tool. All right, and here's an example of using Sway. So here's the site. You simply sign in, and then you start creating. So if you were going to do one on London, you choose the navigation style, the design style, and then you can just start putting your content in right into your Sway, and you can even embed content from other sources. So if you wanted to embed Twitter feeds, YouTube videos, you could have it search right there in Bing and find other pictures. I could even have OneNotes living inside my Sway, et cetera, et cetera. And so it does all the work for you and then produces a Sway. And our last class hack is number 10. Instead of lecturing and grading quizzes, use Office Mix to have students take notes and self-assess with feedback. So Office Mix is a free add-in to PowerPoint, and it basically allows your PowerPoints to become interactive learning presentations instead of sit and get. So if you take a look, you'll see inside of PowerPoint, once you've installed the Office Mix plugin, it shows up on your screen right here. And once I have that Mix plugin inside of PowerPoint, then I can begin either recording on my slides, I can embed quizzes or other video apps, I can do screen recordings, et cetera, all inside of my Office Mix. So I could take a PowerPoint maybe that I had done in the past. I might decide to record on it, maybe do some inking on it, and then give some students some information and then actually add some quiz questions into my mix. And so once I put everything together in my mix presentation, then my students have access to the Office Mix via URL. So they can actually view the mix on their phone or any other kind of mobile device. Anything with internet connection, they're able to view the mix and interact with it as well. So they would actually take the quiz questions that I might have put inside my Office Mix and assess themselves along the way. I can even build and give them feedback. So if they didn't choose the correct answer, I could say, you want to maybe put some hints in for them. So I could add that into my mix. And then as a teacher, I have access to the analytics of how my students are doing inside of the Office Mix. So I can actually see how long they spent listening to the Office Mix on each particular slide along the way. And then I can see how they did on the assessment that's built in. So if I have an assessment built in, I can see where the student's progress is, how many they got correct, et cetera, right inside of there. So not only do I know that my students are following along or participating, but I can actually assess their comprehension right inside using Office Mix. And here's just another view of some of our lab add-ins that work with Office Mix as well. So you can add in simulations, et cetera, et cetera. GeoGebra is a great plugin. The FET's interactive simulations are also another one of my favorite. But all these plugins are available, and you can see the different kinds of assessments that you can give the students inside of Office Mix as well. So that's my Hack the Classroom presentation. Hopefully you found one or two or maybe more tips to get some more instructional time back in your classroom so you can spend the time with your students. If you want to continue this class hack conversation, we are having a class Hack the Classroom event on January 30th at 8 a.m. Pacific time. And if you're interested in continuing this discussion, we will have some keynote speakers here. We will have Hattie Partovi, the founder of Code.org. We'll have Franz Davis here talking about how she uses Minecraft in the classroom to hack her classrooms, and also Dale Dotery, who is the founder of Maker Faire, and he's really big into maker spaces. So we look forward to continuing this conversation with you guys on how you can hack your classroom, and would love to have you join us online for our free event, and the registration is down below. So thank you for your time, and if you have any other questions, I will be happy to connect with you in the Titan Tag in the back channel shortly. Thanks, guys.
Great, Robin. Thank you again for a wonderful presentation. I'll give you just a couple of moments to catch your breath, and then we'll take some live Q&A from our attendees. So if you do have a question for Robin, please feel free to submit it now through that questions box of GoToWebinar. We'll try to get to as many of those questions as we can. Now, this webinar has been brought to you free today thanks to our sponsor, Microsoft Education Empowered. When it comes to technology and education, your school needs more than a device or a service. Your school deserves a complete solution, and your end-to-end solution begins with Microsoft. Now, lots of questions coming in here about where to find some additional resources if you'd like to learn more. Now, today's webinar is being recorded. It's going to be put back into the teacher learning community here at Simple K-12, so you can watch that webinar recording on demand. It's super easy to get to that recording. You'll see the webinars tab and then on demand. So check back in 2 days. This is where you will find that webinar recording. But the archiving process does take 48 hours. Also, if you're wanting to learn more about OneNote or Sway, one of my favorite features inside the teacher learning community is this keyword search bar. So I'm just going to go ahead and do a quick search here for Sway. Click on the search button. It's going to show you the upcoming sessions first. You can see that Robin's going to be here on February 18th for another session with us, and then the on-demand webinar recording specific to Sway. So, a lot of the tools that Robin shared with us today, you can find on-demand webinar recording specific to those tools. So definitely check them out. Okay, Robin, let me go ahead and get your contact information up here on my screen. Now, we had lots of questions coming in, and I'll try to get to as many of these as we can. First question here, how do you get the designer feature in PowerPoint?
Great question. So the designer feature is just part of the update. So if you have the latest version of Office and you're actually running and checking for updates of Office, then that should be just available for you. So it's not anything that you have to manually install. It's just if you have the latest version and you have the latest updates, then you should be receiving it. And if not, you can always go into your Office and go to the File button and go into your account options, and then you can check for your Office updates there. So if for some reason you don't have Office updates automatically being downloaded, that's what you guys would do.
Okay, great. Let's see here, Robin. Next question here from Kevin. Are these programs free, or do we need to purchase it like Microsoft Office?
So you can actually get an online version of Office for free. So if you go to office.com/get Office 365, you can actually you can go in as a teacher and you put your teacher email in there, and any teacher can use Office 365 online for free. So a lot of the tools are available to you online and completely usable for free. If you want the full version of Office, if your school district is a licensed district, then you would also get the ability to download 5 copies of Office for free, and that information would basically be prompted to you when you checked your subscription status. So every teacher in the world can use Office 365 online for free, and depending on your district's licensing policies would depend on whether you get the free 5 versions of Office to download as well.
Okay, Melanie is wondering, does it matter which version of Office?
It just depends. Some of these tools will work across all versions, and some of them are for newer. So, for example, the Office Mix, that is a plugin that works in Office 2013 or Office 2016. So that's going to be definitely in the newer version of Office. But things like PowerPoint, when I showed you the background removal and changing the colors and all of those infographics, save to JPEG, all those things, that works in any of the versions of Office that you should have access to. So some of them are in all, and some of them are only in the newer ones.
Okay, great. And I'm not sure if you already answered this, Robin. Kevin's wondering, do I need to update my computer to Windows 10 in order for the programs to work?
No, all these programs work in Windows 7, 8, or 10. It's not reliant on your operating system, and many of these tools actually work across mobile devices as well. So even if you have an iPad, you can download and use Office on your iPad. You can use Office on any web-enabled device across the internet. So some tools you'll have more options if you're using a full computer, whether that's a Mac or a Windows device. But even if you're using an iPad or a web-based device, our apps work across all platforms.
Okay, great, Robin. I think we have time for one more question here. Let's see, from Susan. Do the students excuse me, let me start again. Do the students see the email notes that you send to their class notebook?
No, they would only send it unless, the only way they would send or see the notes is if you chose to send it to their notebook. But as long as it's a section which you have access to only, then they wouldn't see those things. You just need to make sure that when you set up that section that you didn't give the students view access to that, but it would be a section that you only had access to.